You're watching another Element Eval.
What?
What's happening, all my woods people? If you're into gear reviews, make sure you subscribe to see more of these awesome reviews that we're doing.
Today, we're going to review the Stealth Cam P12. Hey, yeah, I put else on the cut, Dougie.
So as a disclaimer, make sure you understand this is one of the least expensive cameras on the market. So we're going to go into talking about the bad details first.
First bad detail that I didn't like about this camera, and you see it a lot on many different types of cameras, is I hate these straps. Okay? We are living in 2018 right now, everybody, and we can't even put a buckle on a strap, all right? It's like a tension strap, okay? Really, most of the time when I'm headed into the woods, I take that out and I just run this thing like this and use bungee straps, and it works great. So I don't really understand the point of having one of these straps unless you're just old school and you like to put a strap around a tree, because that makes you old school.
That's how the old traditionalists
The
did it.
traditional deer hunters.
One thing, this is really a big opinion, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel like that the pictures that come out of this camera, when you zoom in just a little bit, it becomes very pixelated. And I don't think it has to do so much with that it's a 6 megapixel camera, as maybe the contrast that they use in this camera is pretty high, and stuff starts to really get super digital looking when you zoom in, as opposed to some of the other cameras that are on the same price level that may be a little bit softer, but zooming in you can still see the good fine details of antlers and such.
Talk about this camera.
Blasted.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, maybe it's bad.
Okay, here's another disclaimer for you. This particular camera that we have is ruined. Not really the camera's fault. We set it somewhere where it ended up flooding for about a month, I think. Camera's underwater for a month. You can't expect them to stay waterproof that long. So, what I'm about to show you is the inside of a camera that will make you cry. But, there it is. At 36 bucks a pop, who cares? Bop, pop, dippity dop dop, dippin' dots. I mean, this is a great camera to use in those precarious situations where you really don't lose that much whenever it does get torn up. But what I want to show you is this custom dial system right here, okay? Not the most customizable thing. It is a cheap camera, that's okay. There are 3 presets and a custom preset that you can take and make your own. One of my big issues with this camera is that it's very hard to change the time and date on that camera. And yeah, I know it's not that big of a deal, but it really is, because trying to pattern a buck, there's nothing more important than the time of day the buck came through and what date he came through.
Yeah, you're right. And the presets are also kind of hard to remember, like what does what. It's got, what, 3 Q sets here, and so you have to actually memorize that, or take the instruction booklet into the field with you every time, or hopefully have service to Google it. So we usually do the former.
And a kind of a funny story about this, we hung a camera like this in the Midwest that took us some really good pictures, and suddenly it started taking video. Well, what happened was, we hung this thing near a scrape tree, and the deer started rubbing it. And I guess he whacked it really hard, enough to actually make this dial move inside the camera. So mid-season we started taking videos without even knowing it, okay? Which you think's not that big of a deal, except those videos take up a lot more room on your SD card, and they're not near as sensitive to trigger. So we didn't get as much info after that happened as what we really would have liked. So now, on to the good.
One thing I really love about this camera is that it seems super reliable for a very inexpensive camera. If you were to put this in the same area as some of the cheaper models that are comparable to this, that are sold in the same stores at the same price levels, you would see more deer show up on this camera. And we have actually kind of proved that through some of the research we've done, just kind of accidentally. But this camera seems to be very reliable and catch most of the deer that come through an area on it.
And part of the reason that it is so reliable is that for an inexpensive camera, this camera actually has a very good trigger speed, which, being public land hunters, we're not always so concerned with trying to count inches on top of a deer's head. We're trying to make sure that we have a shooter in the area, which trigger speed is super helpful with. It doesn't do you any good to get the butt of a booner on your trail camera, right? Booner butts are not much good when it comes to deer, okay? But what does matter is getting the whole buck in the frame, which this camera is very, very good at.
No bug butts.
And to go along with a great trigger speed, this camera also offers a burst mode, which for cheap cameras is not something you always find. It's one of those things where we talked about earlier, you have to remember which quickset it is, but it's quickset 1. You actually get a 3-burst photo on that setting, which really helps during November during chasing, because you don't want to just get the picture of the doe, but you also want to get a picture of the buck that's chasing the doe.
Another neat thing about these cameras is it shows the moon phase if you have the correct time and date. So that's nice to know that you can do that as well. And all of these features come in a very inexpensive package. We're talking under 40 bucks. So it's a pretty good deal for this whole thing.
So if you're a public land hunter and you don't want to worry too much about getting trail cameras lost or stolen, check out the StealthCam P12 because it's a good inexpensive option for a great camera.
And if you like gear reviews, make sure and give us a thumbs up.
And be sure and subscribe below.
This is your element.
Live in it.